In the fishes and the basal tetrapods, we will be discussing about the tetrapods today. So what are the tetrapods? The tetrapods are the organisms which are having 4 limbs. And these, why do we need limbs, right? So for example, we human are also tetrapods. We need limbs for the locomotion or to perform different tasks. The earlier organisms which were living in the aquatic or environment, just like the fishes, right? So the bony or the cartilaginous fishes, they didn't need any such organs to support them because they were living inside the water where there is less gravity, and that we will be discussing. So there was a shift from the fins to the limbs. So when a fish became a land animal, sure, the key problem was breathing air. So what will happen, right? So if a fish comes to the land, what will happen? Will it need some air to breathe, or will it have some difficulty to breathe in the air? No, this was not the problem, because the fish have evolved some ways to get the air into their lungs. There are some fish which are called lung fishes because they had additional pair of lungs as well, in addition with the gills. So early bony fish almost certainly had both lungs and the gills. So when these early bony fishes had both the lungs and gills, that means the breathing in the air, that was not the problem in the terrestrial environment. So what was the problem then? So the main problem was support. In water, an animal weighs virtually nothing, right? So if you are going swimming, you can see that you are sort of having no weight inside the water. And on the land, the body has to held up from the ground. I am standing, I need to push the ground beneath me to stand up, right? So I need some supportive structure. The bones in my leg, the vertebral column, they are giving me support to stand up and give lecture in front of you. So the internal organ have to be supported in some way. Not only I need some bone structure or the skeletal structure or the limbs to give me support, but also my internal organs, my lungs, my heart, my trachea, esophagus, all of those things are enclosed in a rib cage. And if I am not supporting those structures, there can't be some very, very serious consequences, right? So these organs need support, as well as my brain needs some protective environment, just like I have the cranium. All the human have cranium. So what are the other problems organisms or the animals faced once they migrated from the marine environment or shifted from the marine environment to the terrestrial environment? The reproductive problems. For example, earlier the fertilization was was happening in the water, right? Now we had to evolve new ways because the gametes, they will dry out in the outer environment. So you have to have some internal fertilization mechanisms. The osmotic water balance, we have to have evolved some kidneys so that we can conserve our water, because the terrestrial environment contains less water as compared to the marine environment. And the sensory system have to adopt. In the dark ocean bottoms, you don't need very much pronounced eyes, because, and might be the other mechanisms, but in the light, there is a lot of light on the terrestrial environment. So you need some sensory systems also need to adopt. For example, the eyes, the ears, which are adapted to the hear in the air instead of water. So these changes did not happen all at once, but we somehow accumulated at different stages in our geological time period. So the tetrapods arose from fishes during the Devonian. And what are their closest fishy relatives? I think so we have discussed in the previous topic as well. The lobe fins. The complex bony and muscular pectoral and pelvic paired fins. If you see that last diagram in the previous slide, you would see that there were if there are the two limbs, so they have the two fins, the lobed fins. If you have pectoral fins, there that makes pectoral girdle, and that makes your arms. If you have pelvic fins, that make your pelvic girdle and your legs. So in this way, they had the similar structure. The first good evidence of tetrapods come of the late Devonian, and the best known forms are Acanthostega and Ichthyostega, which were 0.6 to 1 meter long respectively. So these were some fishes which are the bony fishes from which the tetrapods evolved. And here you can see the diagram, the skull of the late Devonian amphibian. So this is an amphibian, Acanthostega, showing the streamlined shape, deeply sculpted bone, and small teeth, all inherited from its fish ancestor. So here you can see the amphibian head of the Acanthostega. You can see that it is having very much similarity. In bird eye view, you can see that it looks like some maybe crocodile. So, and the amphibians, right? So what does the amphibian mean? Amphi means two, bians mean living organism. So the living in a way, somewhere living. So the halfway land animals, because they would live inside the water as well as on the terrestrial environment. So there are the 4,000 is a smaller group, right? So it does not have a lot of species, but it is very much diverse as well. So 4,000 species of mainly small animals that live in or close to the water, and they still rely on the water for breeding and water balance. The oldest fossil form with reduced limb is the Jurassic in age. All living amphibians appear to the closely related and forming a clade that is called Lysamphibia. So Lysamphibia is the clade which is, ancestor of all the modern day amphibians. And if we, date their age back, that will be in the Jurassic period. So what are the different classes of amphibians, or what are the important classes? So there is class, just like we have discussed earlier, the subclass Lysamphibia, and this from this class there are the frogs, salamander, which are newts, and Sicilians, which are gymnophoenans, and these are the organisms which are belonging to this subclass. And when did it evolve, and is it present today? So answer is yes. So it evolved during the early Triassic. It first appeared during the early Triassic, and the organisms of these sort of the individuals of subclass Lysamphibia are living even today. And then there is subclass Reptiliomorpha. So as the name indicates, they look like reptiles. Reptilio means they're related to the reptiles, and morpha means their morphology, their shape. They look like reptiles. So they have the two orders. One order is narrow-skulled and fish-eating amphibians, and the other order is high-skulled terrestrial amphibians. So and they were first evolved during the late Carboniferous, and then they went extinct in the late Permian period.